today, we are here to expand our classroom experience. To go beyond the classroom and to get some input. We have two community activists and two veterans of the civil rights movement. We've been discussing equality and equal rights, and we've seen the film. We've seen the film. Part of Eyes on the Prize. And so we're going to expand our discussion today with two people. Actually, we have three people here with us, three veterans of the Mississippi Civil Rights Movement here with us today. And they're going to be joining us in terms of expanding our discussion on equality, equal rights, civil rights, and all those words that you have been introduced to, Jim Crow, and so they're going to be joining us in our discussion. And so, since this is a discussion, and it's not about them talking to you, we're going to be interacting and engaging in this discussion today. So since this is not where the presenters are going to be presenting to you, and it's going to be a dialogue going on here. And so in this dialogue, I'm going to ask that we kind of go around or start introducing ourselves. So we're not, I'm not going to introduce the speakers, or let the speakers introduce themselves, and you know who I am, and we're going to start around the circle. We're going to all introduce each other, okay? So you can find what you feel on your heart that you want to share with our guests today for starters, okay? We'll start by way of introduction, and you know who I am. I'm Professor Frankie Adams Johnson. Okay, and I'm going to be kind of moderating this today to kind of help us, you know, move along. And we're going to move to my left here.
Thank you. I'm Flonzie Brown Wright, and I am a Mississippi Civil Rights veteran. In 1968, I became the first female to be elected to public office in Mississippi since Reconstruction. We'll talk a little bit more about that later.
My name is Willie Blue, and I'm a civil rights activist. I'm also the chaplain for the veterans of the Mississippi Civil Rights Movement.
My name is Owen Brooks, and I'm the oral historian for the Mississippi Veterans of the Civil Rights Movement and the Margaret Walker Alexander Research Center.
My name is Daniel Jackson, English education major from Memphis, Tennessee.
My name is Brittany Colbert. I'm an elementary education student. My name is Demetrius Cole. I'm a sophomore psychology major.
My name is Lenore Lee. I'm an elementary ed student here at Jackson.
My name is Kendra Belton. I'm an elementary education major. My name is Shirley Patrick. I'm an elementary education major.
My name is Terrence Watson. I'm a physical ed major.
My name is Linda Moses, and I'm a junior, and I'm majoring in special education, and I'm in nursing.
My name is Joyce Lynn Horton. My major is communications with disorders.
My name is Vanessa Perkins. I'm a senior English major.
My name is Jasmine McDonald. I'm a junior elementary education major.
My name is Sierra Lindsay. I'm a junior and I'm an early education K-3.
My name is Jolisa Cooper. I'm an education major.
My name is Mercedes Scott. I'm a senior and my major is early childhood and pre-K through K.
Okay, so now we're going to get this circle talk started by maybe you just kind of shared with our guests some of the stuff that will come up with you as we watch the film, as we have been reading, particularly Thomas Jefferson. We had a lot of reactions in terms of what we thought about Thomas Jefferson and what we thought about Thomas Jefferson as he spoke on the African American. Can somebody talk to our guests about that and see if they can share some thoughts on that as we approach the question of race relations and equal rights? Who wants to get us started?
I'll start.
Yeah.
From the reading of the notes of the State of Virginia, what I took out of it was, in my opinion, I felt as if Thomas Jefferson was a hypocrite because he basically, again, in my own interpretation, was saying that he didn't want the black race to mix with the white, yet he was going off sleeping with slaves and had offspring that worked there. So basically, it looked like he was trying to play both sides of the fence to keep both races clear.
Any other thoughts that we're gonna get our guests to speak to this question? Any other thoughts that I'm kind of touch on what you guys are getting at? Any other thoughts on Thomas Jefferson? It was the beginning of our discussion around racism and white supremacy. Any other thoughts on Jefferson? Yes, sir.
Well,
And state your name before I.
Danny Jackson. In Nelson State, Virginia, Thomas Jefferson, he degraded black people. He wanted to prevent black people from being of equal socioeconomic status as the whites. And he didn't give us any credit for things that we've accomplished.
And that basically, we began our discussion, the myth of the melting pot with Thomas Jefferson, that Thomas Jefferson being held as one of the great heroes in American history, that it was appalling for some of us to discover that Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner, but Thomas Jefferson was also white supremacy. So our topic for today is kind of touching on this whole question of the melting pot, and I guess we'll start our discussion about the melting pot. It was supposed to be the idea of a melting pot, just that all of these races would blend into this one group, into this pot, or the metaphor for melting pot of all would come into America and blend as one race of people, not black, not white, not yellow. But the sweetening in that part is that at the time the notion of the melting pot was thought of that the blacks were not included in this. So we've kind of invited you into our midst, Sister Flossie and Brother Blue and Brother Brooks, to kind of help these young people to kind of look at this thing, because the question today is still are we still unequal? So I guess we'll start this discussion. I had a question for them. When you were growing up, what metaphors were used to describe various races and ethnic groups of your time? When you were growing up, what kind of metaphors was used to describe you as an African American?
Well, if I may, good afternoon, class. Certainly it's an honor for me to participate with you this afternoon, and certainly your teacher is just a very great dynamic lady who believes in what she is sharing. And if you certainly take all the information that she's going to share with you, then one day you will sit in our seats. And just to let me know how much I appreciate the invitation, just a little sister gift for you.
Oh,
okay. Just something for you to just carry around. I'd like to speak to the issue of the Thomas Jefferson piece first, if I may.
Sure.
And you said that you were appalled to find that, someone said they were appalled to find out that on one hand, Thomas Jefferson was talking about was owning slaves, and then on the other hand was sleeping with the lady in the kitchen. Well, that was not unusual. That was not unusual. Many of our great heroes and our legends, who we believe at that particular time were in fact in favor of the melting pot, the integration process, were in fact doing just that. Now I'm a published author, a best-selling author. I'm going to pass around a picture of my mother, and I'm going to tell you why she looks the way she looks. Okay, let's share this one on this side. It was not unusual at all for the slave master to sleep with black women in the community, not in the community, but with his black female slave hands. As an example, it was usual for me as a child growing up in Farm Haven, Mississippi, which is 16 miles east of Canton, to see the great the great white grandfather coming down the road to my mom's house and her parents' house, bringing peas and sweet potatoes and a side of pork to help feed the family. And so that was not unusual. Now, he had his real family on one road, and you had the second family on the other road. And so my great-grandfather was a white man on my mom's side. And they were, and I have to use this term, dedicated to seeing that those little black kids, that second family, had food and had clothes, school clothes, and things of that nature. So it was a common practice that when the lady in the kitchen was cooking, the black woman in the kitchen was cooking, that when old master decided he wanted to come home at lunchtime and make a baby, he felt he had the privilege to do just that. And it took me years to understand why my mother, as a little girl of 12 years old, wouldn't allow me to work with white people. I remember one day I was walking home from school with 3 or 4 girls in the group, and a white lady pulled up to the curb, and she said, "Come here, little girl." And I wasn't sure who she was speaking to, because there were several of us in the group. And she said, "You with the blonde hair," because when I was younger, my hair was red and blonde and all that stuff, because I was a product. The genes went very deep. I was a product of that white influence. And so I finally went to the car. She said, you. And I looked and she said, "You, come to my car." So I came to the car. And so she said, "You know, you look like the kind of," I was real neat, Mom. I was a big girl still wearing ribbons and body socks. Can you imagine? Big girl, still wearing ribbons and body socks. And she said, "You look like the kind of a little girl that could help babysit my children." Well, I had heard Mom and Dad talk about, my dad was making $18 a week, so to take care of 5 people. So I thought if I had a job, that I could help bring in home the bacon. And so she said, I said, "Yes, ma'am." And I just was as excited as I could be. I went home and told my mother, who stood about 5 feet in her high heel shoes, that I said, "Mother, guess what?" I said, "I got a job." She said, "A job? A job doing what?" I said, and her name was Miss Ann. You've heard the metaphor, Miss Ann. Her name was really Miss Ann. I said, "Mama, I want to be working for Miss Ann." She said, "Doing what, baby?" I said, "I want to be babysitting for Miss Ann." She said, my mother put her hands on her hips and screamed at me and said, "You cannot do that." Well, I'm 12. I didn't understand all the history of how we all looked the way we looked. And I said, "Well, Mother, what is it?" Mother didn't explain that to me until I became an adult with children. That's my oldest born, my first born, the young lady beside me behind the counter. And so she said, "This is why you couldn't do that. I did not want to put you in a position at 12 years old where Miss Ann is going to work for Rita, and Mr. Ann comes home at 12 o'clock, and you there babysitting the children. He would violate you at 12 years old." Much of that happened. That was not uncommon. What was as we discovered the history of how all those things happened, it was surprising that a white landowner, slave owner, could talk so much against the races being equal, the melting pot, and by the same token, having a family by his maid. And one of the saddest things about that, if that maid was married to Mr. Jimbo, he could do nothing about it. That was another way of keeping our black brothers, our men, dehumanized and feeling as though they had no value. But that was a common practice as opposed to an uncommon practice. The thing is, once we began to discover the real history behind that, it made a difference. Did that kind of get it moving?
And I actually had, you guys, did you bring this sheet today? Okay, well, anyway, this is a student question, I guess. for the veterans, okay? And, student question, I'm going to ask Mr. Blue, Mr. Brooks, what is your thought on the idea of the melting pot? And, African Americans and other people of color still inevitable, that's one. And what real things that you experienced during your generation that can be defined as racism, inequality, undertreatment? That's a category, all right?
Yeah, well, it's a great question.
Mr. Brooks, are you okay? We have you first? It's hard to see.
Okay, go ahead. Well, good. Help yourself.
Addressing the melting pot, that's what America is supposed to emulate, is the only nation on the planet that embraces all religions, all races, all ethnics, and represent as one. Now that only works in the military when there's a war. That works perfect when there's a war going on. And it does not work so well in society. I read a piece a long time ago concerning equality and the readiness of black people into the mainstream. And it was talking about wildness, like a rabbit. They compared us to animals. It said that you don't take a rabbit out of the woods and bring him into the city and turn him loose and think that he's going to survive. And I thought about that a long time, and I still think about that. When they address the issue of blacks being equal and ready to enter the mainstream, they know what they did to us. They know the oppression. They know denied education. They know denied economic progress. They know they did this. You know, it's like a rat. Where are the weapons of mass destruction? We can't find them, but we know we got them. How do you know? We got the receipt right here where we sold it to them. So the phenomenon that we face is right now. Politicians don't want to alienate the South because they need the vote. They can't win office without them. And if they take sides with us, they're going to lose the election. We can't get them out of office because they outnumber us. And in the 60s, our answer was to just get in their face. We have to get in their face with it. We can't just be passive and agree to everything. That's not beneficial to our people. So we had to protest, nonviolent protest. You can get in folks' face without being violent. You can let them know that you mean business without being violent. And that's the way we have been handicapped in our movement. The American way, any red-blooded American, it's okay to defend yourself, except if you are a black civil rights activist. Now you cannot defend yourself. So we have these two different laws. I call them the laws of insanity. Segregation, Jim Crow laws. It's a wonder anybody in Mississippi got any sense at all living through that. The back of the bus, the Freedom Ride started because interstate travel, it was a mess. I went to Memphis with my mother on the bus, and I was ashamed to go in the restroom. You was smelling before you got to it. Nobody cleaned it. And this was just another part of dehumanizing us. And they're my heroes, the Freedom Riders. I mean, they're a brave, crazy bunch of people that stood up for what they believe, and I'm proud of them. And I'm glad they did what they did. And my question when they got here was, what took y'all so long to get it? Because we've been suffering for a long time, still suffering. The Jim Crow thing is still very much alive and well. And they display that with their flag, with their rhetoric. They're still trying to overthrow the United States government, first by armed force. That failed. Now they're going to try to do it politically. And we have to be aware, and we have to organize. The only way we made progress was to be organized. We betrayed about our voting rights in the beginning, and we're still being betrayed to some degree, economically and politically. We have more black elected officials in the state of Mississippi than any other state, but they are impotent, have no power to change anything, name only. So we still have a fight ahead of us to gain power economically and politically. So I'm willing to answer your questions if I can answer them. I'm old school.
Now I want to get you guys involved, okay? Before we go on to our next guest, I want to get you involved. Mr. Blue mentioned throughout a couple of things, freedom rides and Jim Crow, and he referred to Jay. What do you think about what he's saying? Do you know what he means when he says freedom riders? He also said that he spoke of having to fight for rights with nonviolence. What do you think about that? Okay, so I'm trying to get some of your response to anything some responses from any of the speakers that you've heard so far.
I'll speak again. Freedom Code. Okay, I just had one question. How hard was it to contain your peace? Because looking at the youth today and a lot of those who did fight back then, who had hot heads or had bad tempers, how was it for you? Like, what did you do to maintain your peace and not lash out?
Before I joined the movement, I lay awake nights and think about how I pick them off one at a time. Fortunately, when I got out of the Navy, I didn't know there were so many people that was 20, 19, 20, and 21 years old that felt exactly the same way I felt. And through, when I got out of the Navy, I had unemployment. Back then it was $29 a week. And they insisted I work in the fields for $3 a day, which is about $15 a week. And I resisted. And they ran me out of town. The lady told me, she said, well, there's some freedom riders in Greenwood. They're going to kill you. And your best hope is to try and get up with them. And that's what I did. That saved me. Because I was fighting alone. And I didn't know I didn't have to be alone. And people were slick. You know, they convinced me we cannot win a violent war. We just too outnumbered, too outgunned. So we have to do it non-violently. We have to fight our fight non-violent fight. And through the other brothers like Bob Moses, see that picture there? That's Bob Moses, and that's George Williams, who still lives right out here in Jackson. Tell you a little story about George. the riots was happening out there, the police would shoot us up, and they had buckshots in the shotguns. And George had one of those metal cigarette cases in the shirt pocket, and an eyeglass case in the shirt pocket, and a ball about the big as your fingernail here. Went through his shirt pocket, through the glasses, through the cigarette pack, and fell off on the inside of his shirt. He came in here and showed us how. So the Lord was with a lot of us. We've been blessed. We couldn't have done this without divine intervention.
Okay, part of why we united the older generation to this is a bridge, trying to bridge the gap between your generation and the older generation. That's just being an older generation, not old folks, but being an older generation. I wanted to ask the old generation to speak to some of the things since we are looking at the question of equality and are we still, is this idea of the melting pot. So I'm going to throw a question back. Well, first of all, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to speak just for maybe a minute, maybe two at most, on the things that you experience that can be defined as racism, inequality, unequal treatments. And then what I want to do is ask our panelists to speak to some things, and I want you to speak to things that you see in your time. That is oftentimes what we hear young people saying, well, and that was back then, once when I was trying to kind of raise consciousness about the question of equality and inequality. One student complained to my chair and said she's always talking about those old time stuff that happened back then. So I want our guests to talk about what happened back then that made us feel that we were treated unjustly. What do we see that signify racism? And then I want you to talk about what in your day signifies these things for you. So let's hear from the panel, and because we want to hear your voice, and we want to probably each of the three people that we have here, and we do have some other people that have joined us. Welcome to our circle. Okay, and I'm Professor Ricky Adams Johnson. I'm also a veteran of Mississippi Civil Rights Movement. These are our students here at JSU, some of the students here. Okay, so welcome for joining us, and if we have time, we'll invite you to voice. So, we'll start with you. Why don't we start with
Mr. Brooks?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I don't hear very well.
Okay. Mr. Brooks laughed at it. Mr. Brooks, okay, I'm going to come over so you can hear. The question is can you just kind of explain to these young people some of the things that I guess what I'm asking is like some visual image or some that would signify racism during your time, inequality.
Yes.
So we're going to do this for about 2 minutes, and then we're going to hear from them, because what I'm trying to do here is to get them involved so they can process what they might consider.
I'm sure they're already involved, but from my perspective, I lived in 2 parts of the United States. I have lived in the North, and I have lived in the South. Now, I've spent the first 36 years of my life in Massachusetts, in Boston, and of West Indian parentage. And I happened to, while I was living in Boston, I happened to spend 2 years on the island of Jamaica. So I had that perspective to help me along the way. But let me say this. I never went to an all-black school while I was living in the North. I went to school with the other races, not just one race, but the other races in the Boston environment. And, looking at Thomas Jefferson was a hero of white people all over this country for a very long time. And he was made to be a hero of black people also. We didn't know any better. So Jefferson was our hero and he was their hero. And Jefferson had great contradictions in his life. And some of them did not come to light until recent years. We all thought that he represented the epitome of democracy, yet and still he kept slaves. And what did that denote? Did that denote, the fact that this man was tried to serve two worlds. He tried to live in two worlds. He had black children, as he had white children, married to a white woman. So blacks living in Boston went along with the majority opinion about Thomas Jefferson, that he was the country's hero, and that would mean he was supposed to be our hero also. And he is just an example of the contradictions that existed in that arena for a very, very long time. He was a contradiction, and there were other contradictions. Now, when I went to the island of Jamaica, my own grandmother, well, my grandmother had, let's see, she had 4 husbands, I guess. And one of them was Spaniard, and another one was Jewish, and then there were 2 that were black, as far as I could tell. And I'm one of the many that has not been able to ferret out the family tree in that part of the world, so that I could identify, well, who in the world was my grandfather? And was he black or was he white? And I have never said this to any of the folks that I have talked to down here, because it just hasn't come up. But my grandfather on my mother's side was a black man. The grandfather on my father's side, well, I don't know. But I did see a picture of my father, who died at an early age, holding me in his arms in New York City. And he was, for all intents and purposes, a black man. He looked black. He lived in the black community. And we grew up as black people. And I paint this picture for you because some of you all, unbeknownst to you, have come from the same kind of lifestyle, come out of the same kinds of contradictions that I came out of in my lifetime. And it's a fact. I didn't make this up, but it's a fact. There are less than 1% of the black people in the United States that are pure black. White people have been marrying black people way as long as when they first came to these shores, put it that way. And then they married Indian people, and that works both ways. Indian people married black people, white people married black people. And there was this intermingling and this behind the scenes socialization of all of us that we really don't know about. We don't have the full and complete story. You don't have to take my word with it. This is the fact. And just look at yourself in the mirror and look at your mother and look at your father, and you can tell. Owen Brooks didn't tell a lie. The mixing of the races is historic in this country. It's historic throughout the whole world. And some of us did not come to terms with racism until we were adults. And we lived in the black community, but we didn't know how we got there. A lot of us did not know. And we had to begin to write and begin to look for our own history and try to discover on which is the branch of the tree that we came on with. I want to start because you can talk all night on this subject.
Well, thanks for sharing, Ms. Brooks. Now,
it just raises a lot of questions.
I think it's probably what I'm aiming for, and I still haven't quite gotten that, because I want you to get the young people involved on this one question here, and that we often talk about what happened during our time, and the disconnect seems to be that young people don't really You had to go out and do that because you couldn't do this. Well, we can do this. So you had to go out and fight for voter rights because you couldn't vote because the law said you couldn't vote. But now we can vote, so that's not one of our issues. So where I'm trying to make this discussion is, what was then that you had to do, that the law, that the system of Jim Crowism, the system of segregation, that the system didn't allow you to do, and trying to get the students to process what it is that, how do we see this ism, this racism now? That's what I'm trying to get to. And so maybe I'll put it on you guys then. What do you see as it couldn't be defined as racism?
It couldn't be.
That can be defined as, what are your experiences? You've heard from our panel, with some of their experiences. What are some of your experiences that you find do? Okay, I asked the panel to talk a little bit about what else and find. Do you think that people are, that there's openness, there's unity, and that there's harmony? What do you think about this idea of openness, unity, and harmony? And state your name.
Kendra Dustin. I know that in the past, it was segregation, like in restaurants, blacks couldn't sit with whites. And from my perspective, being from now, it's certain places that I went with my mother, and like, I don't want to offend anybody, but they sat us in the back, like the majority of black people that come to the restaurant, in the back. Like, they still do that in some places. And my mother would be like, I don't want to sit back here, don't put me in the corner, sit me in the front. Like, to me, I feel like it's still very prominent in some places. Some people don't look at it like that.
So what is the it that we were talking about?
I guess segregation, sitting blacks with whites, they still don't do that in some places. Because I went with my mother. My mother was born in the 60s, so she's always going to look at stuff like, don't do that, don't treat me like that, And to me, I'm like, well, it's just a booth, But to her, it's like, don't sit me in the back, in the corner. Sit me in the front. I can't sit in the front. So I feel like as of now, in 2012, it's still very prominent in some places.
So what would happen, hey, I'm just trying to, when our panel speak to that, you said, don't sit me in the back. What kind of actions was taken during the 60s when people say, you can't sit up front? Mr. Blue. Mr. Blue. Okay, well, she says now, if that happens to you back in the 60s, somebody say, you can't sit up here, what kind of actions would you take? How would you respond to that? Back then.
Let me give you just a little background. My first day at school, I knew we were 6 years old, anxious to get our books. All our books came from the white school. Pages torn out, nigga wrote all in it. My first experience of getting a book told me right up front. Wasn't hiding nothing. Now, racism still exists. It's just a little bit under the surface. Whereas before, it was wide open. Now they halfway try to obey the law. Except in some cases, black men are still being dragged to death by behind the truck. Black men right here in Jackson are run over and murdered right in front of the cameras. And we can't get anybody to prosecute the perpetrators right now. So it's not something that's invisible, it's with us. And my only answer to all of us is that we have to protest. We can't let stuff just keep on sliding. The more we let them oppress us, the more they're going to take away all our rights that have been gained over the last 100 years. They're going to take them right back if we don't get in their face. So people that, everybody don't want to talk to me because they don't want to get in no white folks' face, okay? One example, I went to, when I first came here, I went to the mattress store. Bought me a nice mattress, nice, almost looked good, $600 mattress. they got the mattress to my house, that ain't what I bought. I go back to the store, well, it's the same thing, but we out of that. Why didn't you tell me that before I gave you my money? So I raised enough hell, I ain't want to do no business with them. I raised enough hell till they finally gave me back my money. And I slept on the floor. Not because I'm just an evil, mean man, but I've had to do this all my life. If I take what they give me for my money, how do you treat me like that? I'm not going to allow it. I'd rather sleep on the floor. And that's what I did. So it's obvious to some of us and subtle to others of us. But my thing is, you don't want to be with me, I don't want to be with you. Simple. I think we should build our own restaurants. I think we should build our own motels in our own neighborhood. I think we should build our own museums, everything in our own neighborhood. And buy. That's my attitude.
Shaking your head.
Let them go.
You agree with what Mr. Willis said?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Why does it sound like a good idea? Well, before you say that sound like a good idea, I'm trying to get you guys to talk about, because this question keeps coming up. Well, that was back then. Y'all, you couldn't do all those things back, but we can do this. We can go where we want to. We can eat where we want to. We can ride a bus if we want to. We can even vote if we want to. But now, so what are some of the things that you see that are still unequal? That's what I'm trying to get to. And what are some of the things, and I think as we keep on dialogue, what I hope to come out of, what are some of the things, what can you, hopefully this panel can share some of the strategies that maybe was used back then when things were obviously unequal, and what can you be doing now to make your community a better place? So, yes ma'am. And your name is?
Jane McDonald. I feel like just voting, even though even though Black people can vote, I feel like they're still trying to do everything that they can to make it to where they cannot vote. Just like the law that was passed in Mississippi where you have to have an ID to vote. They are doing everything they can to keep.
Who's this mysterious fan?
Republicans.
Republicans are doing everything they can to keep Barack Obama out of office. And because I heard on the radio the other day, Reverend Jesse Jackson was talking about, I think it was 5,000 or something like that, people who voted in 2008 are not going to be able to vote this year. And we know that they are all Black because they don't want Barack Obama back in office again. They're trying to, everything that Republicans make up is trying to keep Black people down. No matter how far we come up, they always try to push us back down.
Some other thoughts.
I wanted to say something. My name is Joyce Lynn Horton. I know the incident with Ruth Chris. Well, they made the statement on
With who?
Ruth Chris. It's a restaurant. It's it's a good restaurant. It's high scale.
It's upscale restaurant.
And like they say, us Black people, they just keep moving away from us, and we keep coming. Like the company that the manager made, they love us. He was talking about Black people. He made a statement. They love us. They gonna keep coming. They loud. They have loud parties and stuff like that. And he made a mistake and sent the email to the lady that was trying to book the place. But still, we still go out there. We still take our money to them. We still, you know what I'm saying?
What do you think about that? Somebody respond to that.
Well, that's just like Tommy Hilfiger. He got on national television and said that he don't make his clothes for Black people. He don't want Black people wearing his clothes, but yet still we still go out and deal with Sears and whoever sell them and buy Tommy Hilfiger.
All right, so now I'm gonna listen to what you said, and I'm gonna put myself back in the time. Okay, so that's how you define some of your ideas of racism, right? So let's ask our panel. Okay, let's take this scenario, and how would you respond to address that? We're gonna start with Sister Brown over here.
Well, what I really want to clearly say to you this afternoon is that the crux of equality and inequality, the crux of the civil rights movement revolved around the right to vote. Now, when the speaker spoke earlier about, someone spoke earlier about the kind of control you need to have in order to be able to participate in demonstrations and all of that. Young people your ages were trained in ways of nonviolence. And if you came to a section or a institution that was training you in a nonviolent manner, and that was not your thing, and it didn't have to be your thing, then you could not participate in that nonviolent strategy. I was on staff at Miami University in Middletown, Ohio, which is a part of Miami and Oxford, where at Western College, students came from all over the world, really, particularly all over the country, to be trained in nonviolent techniques, and that's what helped to make the movement work. But the crux of the civil rights movement revolved around our inability to be able to vote, because the whites understood that if blacks got the right to vote, then they could decide on anything in the town that needed to be decided on. And as long as they kept that right to vote away from us, then we had no power. I have just a couple of handouts. I think it's four for each side. And I want you to take a look at that young African-American young man drinking out of a water fountain. And the caption, "Your vote is power." Now, once we as black people understood the significance of the right to vote, it's almost as though we caught a fever. Now, I'm from the middle town of Canton, where before we started the voting registration process, there were about 10,000 African Americans who were eligible to register, but yet only about 100 were. And they were school teachers and primarily ministers. And so the reason why there was such an outcry, let's get registered, was because the system knew that we could change the kinds of things that were being perpetrated. When blacks went to register, since we're talking civil rights also then and now, when blacks went to register, we were given a 21 item, I want you to listen to this carefully, we were given a 21 item, 2-page questionnaire. Whites were given 6 questions. We were given 21 questions. Now, on that questionnaire, there were some questions as ludicrous, and I'm not talking about, the rap artists. There were some questions as ludicrous as how many bubbles are in a bar soap. How many bubbles are in a bar soap?
They call that a legitimate question.
How many jelly beans are in a pound of candy? How many polka dots are in a yard of fat? Blacks had to answer those questions to the satisfaction. Oh, you want, baby? I got you. We had to answer those questions to the satisfaction of the registrar, who barely had an 8th grade education. And so when blacks went in to get this 21-item questionnaire, then you get to item number 17, and you go to his desk and reach in a stinking cigar box where he had cut and folded sections of the Mississippi Constitution, and you pulled out a section, and you read that section, and you wrote your interpretation to his satisfaction. And he didn't know himself, but what he had was power. Keep in mind, he had the power to deny you. So many people all over the South, when they went to register, they got to item number 17, cigar box, whatever other test he wanted to use. And if you gave him back your questionnaire and asked him, did you pass, how did you do? My own experience, I went through this process and got to item number 17, and I pulled out habeas corpus. Now, how in the world would I have known at 20 years old what habeas corpus meant? But I had to answer that question to his satisfaction. He didn't know either. And so when I gave him back my questionnaire and asked him, I said, how did I do? I'm excited, I'm about to become a first-class citizen. I'm about to become a registered voter. That was awesome. And he said, well, you didn't pass. I said, well, sir, what was my mistake? He looked at me and he said, nigga, I said you asked the question earlier, what was some of my experiences on?
That's
He said, nigga, I said you didn't pass. Get the hell out of my office. Now that's how the average black was treated. The law said, the Mississippi law said, that if you did not pass, you could not even go back within a 30-day period to try and do it again. And so I took those 30 days and came to Jackson, went through the Mississippi Constitution, because I could not even challenge him because I didn't know either. And that's why students, it is so important for you all. Remember, students your ages came to Ohio to be trained to learn the civil rights movement, to learn what to do and how to do. And so your greatest challenge today is that you take your degree, frame it, that's a good thing. You frame that degree, but you also use that degree to make things better for somebody else. There's a saying that I coined some years ago. Listen carefully. If your space is no better when you leave than when you came, you need to redefine your journey. Let me say that again. If your space, the space that you occupy in life, is no better when you leave than when you came, you're on the wrong journey. Now, we're all going somewhere. What are you going to do to effectuate change? What are you going to do to make things better when you're not on the scene anymore? See, we're an old breed now. Mr. Brooks is about 55. Reverend Blue is about 35. Well, my next birthday, I'll be 70. You see, oh yeah, I'll be 70. And so, see, we're moving off the scene. And so, young people like yourselves, you've got to be the ones to be the Owen Brooks, the Reverend Blues, the Sister Frankies, the Flonsy Goodlow Wrights. You've got to be the ones to catch this fever, to catch on fire, to be caught up, so that when history is rewritten, it will contain your names.
Amen.
You'll be the Fannie Lou's. You'll be the Rosa Parks. You'll be the Frederick Douglasses. You'll be the Barack Obamas.
Amen.
And you'll be the first. There's going to be a female president. And for all that I know, I may be looking in her face today. You will become, and you will become. But you got to understand why you're in this struggle. And this is why I'm so pleased to see Sister Frankie dialogue in this kind of a forum, for you to clearly understand, get that education, and be about the business of making the kind of difference that will please you when you lie down late at night.
All right.
That's where you got to go.
And I'm going to
Amen.
kind of put that back on you. That's a heavy charge and reinforcement of what I've been preaching to you. But now, and so now, can we get to discussion? Okay, we started off with so clearly what we keep hearing is that no, we're far away from this idea of a Delta Power. We still have a long way to go. So the question that I'd probably like to kind of get to us, a concluding question, and we never have all the time that I wish we could have, but just to give us some thought about how would you reimagine America? This is for the young folks. How would you reimagine America? If we say that America is kind of got a way to go before we can realize this dream of a melting pot where all races come together and we are living in harmony, and we're living in unity, and we're living with openness, and we have everybody are equal. How do you see that happening?
I speak very well. My name is Walter Ellsby. I'm Walter Taylor, and my reply back to what you asked. As American, we still got a long way to go. I mean, racism, prejudicism, whichever word you want to use, it's always going to be here. Reason being, that's for something that was taught and drilled. Some people still have it. Some people have let it go. Back to what everybody else said in this room, because a lot of stuff went in circles. Everybody had experience one way or another. I mean, if it was harsh, or if it was something simple as, it's 3 tapes in the front and they take you straight to the back. But sometimes we as African Americans or black, some people are silent on those ways so much that's all they know, and they weren't able to come out of it. We still go to the back of the bus. We still go to the back of the restaurant. We still try to find another way to go where we don't have to come in the door. Everybody's looking at us. Okay. Far as, Caucasians, they're always, I mean, supposedly, I'm not going to say always because I don't believe it, but supposedly in status and social kind of, they're always above us. But I mean, there's nothing holding African American Asians from being, or Hispanics from being where, Caucasians are, because they have the same tools that we have, pencil, papers, book, internet, and everything like that. So we still have a long way to go, but I mean, if everybody take their part and step up to the plate, we can get where we need to be as the other melting pot.
So what would be an example, one little part?
If everybody put in what they're supposed to put in, instead of, well, I know this, but I'm not going to put it in, or, well, it don't matter, it doesn't matter what I say, I'm not going to do it. I mean, put what you're supposed to put into it.
Give me one little example of what you're talking. Give us one little example, okay? Say, what is one thing that you see yourself doing in reimagine America?
Well, not just myself, a lot of African American students our age, I hear a lot of people say, well, my vote doesn't count, so they don't vote. That's one thing that has to change.
What did you do to get those people to vote? I mean, let me just kind of hear you and then I'm going to bounce back. I'm bouncing back because this is an intergenerational guy. Okay, what did, Mr. Blue, in a half a minute, can you tell us one strategy that your generation used to get them? Because what people scared to vote with? What people scared? What their problems with voting? I mean, the sister here talked about, the difficulty it was in terms of going to vote, but there was also people who just were afraid, weren't they? Mm-hmm. So what did you do in terms of the strategy?
I still do the same strategy. When I see people selling their vote for a bottle of whiskey, I tell them people gave up their life, their blood, so that we have the right to vote. And it's an abomination to do these things. And, I chastise them. I get in their face. We've suffered too much to just throw it away. And that happens a lot. People sell their vote for a bottle of wine. Not just in Jackson, but in Chicago, New York, LA, all over the place. They don't think nothing of their vote. Well, ain't nothing gonna change no way. Well, if you feel that way about it, you're right. Ain't nothing gonna change for you if you accept that. But we have to keep attacking the problem. I mean, you just gotta get in folks' face. That's all I know. They get up in your face and tell you, all right.
Sister Mark, what would you suggest to the young lady that made the point that maybe we'll open it up. Anybody?
I can just hit that real quick. We felt such a sense of pride when we achieved the right to vote, when we were able to sign our name in the big book. We felt such a sense of pride, such a sense of accomplishment, because our ancestors couldn't. So our granddads and grandmothers couldn't read or write because they couldn't go to school, right here in Mississippi. And so when we, as a second or third generation, was able to actually register, pass that test, and vote, we felt such a sense of pride that we wanted to pass on to everybody in the world that we were not first-class citizens.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said that y'all passed, like how was it justified? They was asking you all those crazy questions, like, was it?
The registrar had the power to either deny your application or pass your application. So when we say we passed, we really passed his test. Because in local jurisdictions around the state, registrars had the right to create whatever questions they wanted to on a test to keep black folk from registering. And so once we were able to pass his test, if he was having a good day, we felt just like we had just won the greatest war in the world. And so that's why this history, understanding the genesis of the voter registration history, has to be very helpful.
One other thing I would like to add on to that. We knew it was a sham, this poll taxes and stuff. I knew it was a sham from day one. Why? You don't have to read the right to vote. You can make an X, and that's your vote. You don't need to read the right. And that's been the law from day one. So we knew it was a sham just to keep us from registering.
We have a hand over here. I have a question for Mr. Wolf. How do you feel about our generation, our younger fellows and women now, and how they're acting now, and the trouble y'all went through to get us to where we're going, and they're not doing what we need to do with how hard y'all work to get what we can do?
Not enough seminars like this to educate our people. No freedom school like I had to teach me things that was not taught in the public schools. We did those things because we wanted to know who we are. People, our generation, we don't know who we are. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at all these women. And where are men? They in jail. They in jail on drugs. It's all started with welfare. When black women got welfare in Mississippi, my shirt better not be caught in her house. She'd be cut off. Division, divided us. Just like that. Divided the whole family, just like that, with a food stamp.
And let me say
Puts
this.
apart so far, it's hard for us to get back together. How? Because we got black women saying black men ain't no good.
Look,
Put him in jail and let him stay there.
look, let me respond to today, because she asked me a question. And I'm very happy to see you here, and all of the rest of you young people. I'm very happy, because it signals something, it signals change. When you have the ability to take your own initiative and get involved in your community. Let me say this, I was a great advocate for voter registration, but that's not the be-all and end-all. Certainly you should do that, but it's much more important to influence 10 people, 10 young people like you, all right, to get in your community, join an organization, and build an organization that's going to represent your interests and your sisters and brothers' interests and your mothers and fathers' interests. Because the other folks, they are not going to deliver for you. You have to deliver for yourself, and you have to deliver for all the other young people in your community like you. And you can't do it effectively without education. I hear Rick Santorum saying he wants to take all the money, the federal money out of education. He wants to take all the state money out of education. That's an ignorant white man. That's all he can say about that. He's an ignorant and selfish white person who unfortunately is presenting himself to this country as a candidate for the presidency. And we have to pray and work to see that that doesn't happen. You heard me say now, you gotta pray, yes, but you gotta work.
That's right.
Because you gotta influence the folks that live next door to you and are in your community and can put their strength to the plow and get them involved. And we can do it. It's not going to be done for you. You have to. Obama needs your help now more desperately than he ever needed it before. And he's only a symbol because he cannot change America by himself. But he can head up an organization that represents change. And that's what we are about. That's what we need to be about. And that's what all the rest of you all have to get involved in. Changing, because we got a long way to go. There's more poor children in Mississippi right now than there ever were. There are more hungry children in Mississippi than there ever were. There are more homeless children. And we just talk about Mississippi now. There are more homeless children in this state than there ever were. Get involved. That's all I have to say. I'll leave you with that.
We have roughly about 10 minutes left, and so I want to take these last 10 minutes for someone from this side to say a few last remarks to our guests, and what you see is one thing that you see as a problem that you can do to make it better. Okay, somebody from this side and someone from this side to do the same thing. Now, do you get what I'm saying? Say, I want some last remarks for our guests, and something that you see that you can do to make America truly the melting pot, to make your community better from what you've heard today. Okay, so someone from this side, and I think the ladies have been all involved. We got the guys. I also got one guy over here. Okay, wow. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, my name is Lauren Campbell, and my first comment is to you all that came. I want to first say thank you. You know, I don't think y'all have enough credit. People don't thank you all enough for what you have done. And we don't sit and think about this like we should. We don't sit and think about, what our ancestors had to go through, what African Americans had to go through, what some whites had to go through to help us as well. We don't think about that enough, and we don't thank you all enough. So that's the first thing I want to say. The problem that I see today is just that, our mentality. We don't think about what we should be doing. Sometimes when we do think about racism, all we think about is, oh, she's racist, oh, he's racist. Not what can I do to stop this, what can I do, what are the rights that I have, that I can, make a change, and what I can do, how can I talk to other people to affect their mentality, to help us all to want to learn, to want to educate ourselves, to want to help ourselves first so that we can be a help and a blessing to others.
So one of the things that I heard you say that really is key about rights, one of the things that you can do right now today is to know your rights. That's one of the major things I heard come out of your comment. Thanks. Okay, over here. Who's going to represent this side over here? All right, I bet you I can get somebody if I say brownie points. The flock chickens.
She said she had others.
I want to side over here. This is somebody from this side over here.
Can you repeat the question again?
Okay, some last remarks for our guests. And what problem do you see that exists that you see yourself making a difference in today?
Like he said,
introduce yourself.
My name is Joyce Horton. Like he said, get
Who
involved.
is he?
Mr. Brooks. Like he said, get involved. Have more group meetings like this, because a lot of people really don't. Like she said, us being young, we not informed. We really think about my act on other things, and I think about what y'all need to give them the rights to their things that they want to do. So I guess make more groups, have more group sessions like this to get to know your next your neighbor and how they can better help their community.
Do you live in a dormitory? Do you live in a dormitory?
No, ma'am.
You don't? How many of you live in a dormitory? What about organizing a little small group meetings in your room? How about that? See, you talk about organizing, so it's wonderful. So somebody said knowing your rights, and then you talk about organizing, more organizing, a small group. So we talk, get more dialogue going. Is that one of your suggestions? Okay. And so now, I'm going to ask Bree for some final words of encouragement for our students.
Well, knock on doors. You should know your neighbors. You should knock on every door in your block. I know our society's become more transient. You may not know you can live next door now to people for 5 years, not even know their names. But see, that was our salvation. We knocked on doors. We knew our neighbors. We made sure that everybody in our house, in our home was registered. And when voting day came, we pulled them. They went on skateboards and bicycles and tricycles and everything else. So we made sure that people in our circle at church were registered and that they got out to vote. So knock on doors. That's one thing you can do. You can attend community meetings and you can help each other understand the reason why gatherings such as these are important.
I would like to encourage you to get out your pencil and write this down. Denmark Vesey, V-E-A-S-E-Y.
Denmark.
Vesey. Go to the library, look him up, and when you look him up, find your brother, your sister, or somebody, and tell them to do the same thing.
Spell the second name? I mean,
Denmark Vesey, V-E-A-S-E-Y.
V-E-A-S-E-Y.
In 1850, him and 49 other people.
Put a SP there, I can tell you, you might want to check the spelling a little.
Okay.
Did you take those little fancy cell phones she got, Google it up,
And after you do that, we used to come together just and talk about things.
Like what's on your lap, huh?
Yeah, you can organize, you can form book clubs, you can form study clubs, you can do a lot of stuff. And the information is right there in the library. A lot of it is in the computer for you all that know how to deal with the computer. Black people have made such wonderful contributions to this nation. You know, we don't know the, like in cars. Back in the day, it was greasy. When you take the steering wheel, it would get black stuff all on your hand. It was a black man over there with the peanut man. Y'all know who he is. Henry Ford went to him and said, how can we get this stuff out of there? You put the peanut resin, now you got a smooth, slick steering wheel. Didn't know that, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Blue. We talk about, trust me, I know when it's time to go, students have their little built-in clock says time to go. We have 1 more minute. So Mr. Brooks, I just want to, before Mr. Brooks say his little last remarks, I want to say to both our panelists, thank you, and you all say thank you to
Thank you for coming.
Mr. Brooks, one last
That's
remark.
fine. What?
One last remark.
I can't hear you.
One last remark.
Oh, I gave 6 of them already.
But
But remember that one minute. Remember this.
We don't have.
Please. Remember this. We, as black people in this country, cannot do it alone. And in the next 20 years, Latino people are going to be the majority in this country. And white people have to stay involved in the struggle. Okay? So we need allies across the board. This may not sound good to you, but it's true. We cannot do anything to uplift ourselves and the race without making those kinds of alliances. And I leave you with that.
And Mr. Brew wants to share that one thing before we go. Let's all stand. And what we generally do, we are singing with the people. So just I think what would be appropriate. One of our speakers of Mississippi Herons, Fannie Lou Hanger, one of her favorite songs. And since this gathering was to kind of help us let our light shine, help us make a difference in our community, we want to end this by singing one of her songs, This Little Light of Mine, okay? And so we want to, my little final note to you for today, which you have to see, is that hopefully you've been inspired by this gathering, and that it will inspire you to let your little light shine, okay? So, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, I'm gonna let it shine all over the road. I'm gonna let it shine all over the road. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine. Y'all give me one, where you gonna let your light shine? Y'all, where y'all gonna let your light shine? Come on, all over the way.
I really don't want.
I know. Somebody got to start feeling it. Start tighten up. Go back to the back. Tighten up. Go back. Tighten up. Tighten up, make sure. All right, good, good. Can you get everybody? Tight. Tight. Make sure you can see out. Make sure you can see out somewhere. Okay.
Come on in, 100 people.
Tighten up. Mr. Brooks, get ready to take a picture. Look up. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3.
Cheese.
Hamburgers. One more.
Say
melting pot. Melting pot.
Not you.
That's what they've always told us.
1, 2, 3.
Melting pot. All right. Everybody, thank you. Come again. Yeah, this one here, yeah. Okay, all right.
Good luck to you.
All right, I'll see y'all. Could y'all give me the email? Because I got the email. Okay. So, did everybody? Since I can email you. All right.
I got the envelope.
I was just listening to the COFO.
Huh? She was trained.
Dr. Taylor. Oh, let me get a.
She was trained.
Okay.